Hi guys, can you hear me well? Yes? Okay, because I'm kind of sick. I lost this here, so I cannot hear anything. So I try to do my best to put a lot of energy in this talk because I'm very excited a bit about being here first in Berlin. It's my second time in this city, and also to talk about this subject that I love, which is branding and storytelling. So I guess I will start. It will be something around 20 to 30 minutes, me on stage, and then a Q&A. So just to give you a bit of background, I started as an entrepreneur when I was 18, so a long time ago, almost like 20 years ago. And I was always passionate by targeting niche audiences. And recently what I did is I launched a large media company called Afrostream. It was the Netflix of Africa and also the Netflix for black content outside of Africa. And what I realized is that in order to grow your B2C business, you need to create more than just a simple adoption to your product. You need to create a cult, because the early adopters to your product will become your best ambassadors. If we look at what's available today on the market, like the products are almost all the same. Even if you come with a very innovative idea, you know, we can find similar competitors, right? When you look at the brands, there's so many brands. How can you differentiate yourself to the competitor? Basically, we are all the same. If you look at the food industry, and you know, like everybody wants to be vegan, everybody wants to be healthy. You look at the color they use for the logos, it's about the same. What is the main difference? The main difference is the community you're about to build. So, in order for potential users and early adopters to follow your journey, to become ambassadors, you have to give them more than just a good product. It's not enough. You have to give more than a nice logo, because it's not enough. And actually, the name of your brand doesn't matter. Look, I have my computer, it's an Apple. Is there a link between an Apple and my computer? No. Like, so names have no importance. What is important is the community and the culture that you create. So, yes, now that I'm a director at the family, I spend my time talking with founders. And usually they're not comfortable about going beyond like the simple branding or building a good product. They don't want to talk about them. But I try to push them, because when they talk about them, then as a potential user or buyer, I'm interested. I want to know why you decided to start this company. Why are you so obsessed with this product? Why you want to solve this issue, right, with your product? And that's how you start to build your cult. That's how you make people care about your journey. Because most of my advices are for early stage startups. When you don't have millions in the bank accounts to push Facebook ads. You just want to have the first 1,000 supporters, the first 1,000 users. And the only thing they care about is, are you like us? Are you real? Are you like our hero? You know, someone like us who took from his or her own time to build the thing that we dreamed about. And that's the only way for you to start to create the cult. So I can give you a good example. When I started my media company, before raising a lot of money, I had nothing, right? So I had to use social media and I used Facebook to understand the community I was targeting. So my community was people interested by African content, living in Europe, or people from the African diaspora living in Europe. What I did is I created a Facebook page, like a fan page, about this culture, like the movie and TV African culture. And because I was so passionate about it, I started to gain traction. But the big change came when I started to talk about me. I started to, on Facebook, Twitter, and Medium, I was posting my struggle as a teenager growing up in France and having no role models when it comes to television. I was saying that how can I build my identity and dream about, becoming successful when I look at the television, there's no one like me. And by sharing something very personal, people were able to identify and relate to my own story. This thing works for all type of products. This is not just related to me creating a media. It works in food. It works for different type of technology. Going back to my notes. Something that is very important is how do you stay authentic? And there's some easy ways to use your own authenticity as a hack. The first thing is, once you know your audience, make sure you understand their culture and you're inspired by their culture. And when I talk about culture, I talk about the way they talk, the places they have fun, they go. You have to first be one of them or study them. Then make it your own. When I say make it your own, is you have to, like a DJ, you digest their culture and you remix it. Because the word you will use have to be a bit different than what they already have. You show that you part of the community, but even like in advance on the community. And then you share this new language with them. So again, practical example, with my previous company, everybody was talking about black culture, black movies, African movies. And so what I decided to do when I was on stage or talking with the press, I tried to invent new words, new way to describe the genre. And by doing that, people will identify this culture to your product or to your brand. So then I'm sure like you all in different industries and there's ways to do it in your industries, but it's how you make sure that you inspired by the culture, their culture, you remix it, and then you become a leader of that culture by creating your own words. And so it sounds like it doesn't sound that cool because you kind of use and take advantage of the culture, but it's the best way to create a leader in your industry. Be very personal. Again, like I said, there's a lot of noise surrounding your targeted audience. Instagram, Facebook, television, your competitors. If you don't go deep and share something unique, people will not care. People will not follow you. And so I love to think about the fanzines I was reading when I was younger. if you fan of music, like the punk culture, when when you listen to music or you read the fanzines, you can feel that this is very important for the people who actually are doing it, right? And today with startups, we don't feel it anymore. Someone will come with a new SaaS product, someone will come with a new app, and who cares? We don't care. Unless the founder or the founding team will share more about them. Why they're doing it? Why is it important? And you don't have to solve, like AIDS or anger or anything. You could definitely do something that is just for fun. But tell us more. Why should we care? And we would care because you will open yourself. And so we don't all have great stories to tell. So another hack, if you don't have something that is very interesting about you, about why you do it, I invite you to find someone who will become like the ambassador for your product or your brand. Do it with like an early adopter, someone who use the product at first and use his story. It's a good way to hack your storytelling when yourself you're not confident about it and you want to be a bit private. One thing you have to avoid, obviously, it's the corporate bullshit. And so corporate bullshit comes pretty fast when you raise money. When you raise money, you feel more comfortable and you also want to please your investors. When you do some B2C, you don't have to compromise. There's different type of storytelling. There's a storytelling for your investors. So storytelling for investors is great because everything is always fine. There's no issue. We already have solutions to the problem we don't have. It's pretty straightforward. Storytelling for the media is, we are the first, obviously, there's no competition. What we do is very innovative. We do it for the planet, no matter what it is. Like, it's a shame that people have to pay for it, but it's the only way for us to survive, right? Storytelling for your users has to be deeper, has to be more authentic. I don't say authentic because it's hard to be transparent, but more authentic because those people, if you stay true to them, they will support you when you will release a version with a lot of bugs. They will support you when there's going to be an accident or something will crash. They will support you when the press will be against you. They will support you when at a dinner their friends will say your app or your service is whack. And so, again, for them, as the founders, you are people with superpowers. You are the people who actually did what they had in mind, but never felt confident to build. So for them, it's very, very important to avoid the bullshit. So when you do Q&As, when you do YouTube videos, when you meet them, make sure that you don't forget that you're not talking to your investor and you're not talking to the press. I want to be a bit more practical about the way to do it correctly. The first thing about what I said is this is not just social media management. If you think that, you can just put like someone young and this person will be able to create the community, the culture, you're wrong. What I always recommend to founders is to handle the community management at least the two first years. So it's a lot of work, especially the first one. But as you build your product and you try to build your community, talking with them, moderating social media will teach you so much about them, the way they think, the thing you can improve. And once you feel very confident about the culture, then it's time to, like grow the team and have other people working with you. But like the two first years, especially the first one, is super important. So you will always have co-founders saying that they don't have time to do it, but I don't see what is more important than talking with like potential users and understanding their needs. For me, it's the most important thing. Be super, super, super radical and clear. So, and that's also why it's important to have the founders handling the social media at first, is because if you work with an intern, this intern will try to please everyone, like in the comments and stuff. When it's you, you can almost say fuck off to someone who is crossing the line on social media or asking impossible things. And so, in my case, it was very helpful to be the one being sometimes nice with my fans. So I was handling over 60,000 fans before launching my product. But I was also able to be sometimes a bit cold and strong about my positions. And so I was setting the tone, and it had a huge influence on the brand and the way the community was behaving online and the way the cult around my brand remained. So again, I know I talked a lot about it, but please do it yourself at first. Another way to connect with your community and actually build the cult, because I hope you understand that the cult will be like at first around you. The cult is not just the product, because who cares about the product? The cult will be about you and why you decided to put everything aside to accomplish this mission. And people love that because most of people are not able to do it. So one way also to grow the community is to do things that don't scale. And one thing that doesn't scale at all is going to small local events. Because when I say small, like you probably will engage with like 20 people. But trust me, those 20 people, when you talk with them, at least for 5 minutes, they became super ambassadors. Like they are super passionate about it. And so even if after raising like $4 million, I was still going through those very small events. And because the people I was meeting were passionate about, the product I was building and the culture I was like navigating in, they knew about my story. They knew about me going to the States, me going to Y Combinator, me raising the money. So, and I was always sharing on social media, not my personal social media, but the company social media, my journey as an entrepreneur. And so when I was able to meet them in very small events, I was able to see the ROI pretty fast, like because the hour after, the day after on Twitter or Facebook, those people were sharing the experience. So that's funny because I was never talking about the product. Even when I was like meeting with them, I was talking about why I built the product, what I tried to achieve, but it was never a conversation about, oh, you don't have this feature, or can you add those things? Again, I was trying to convert them to my ultimate vision, and I was also trying to understand how deep and how important the problem I was trying to solve was for them. Usually, when on Facebook and Twitter, I was able to identify people engaging a lot, I always try to empower them. Again, it's easier when you're the founder or the funding team handling your social media, because you have the authority to empower those people. But the way to empower them is pretty easy. You can sometimes do some screenshot of their tweets or their Facebook posts and highlight them on your own accounts. You can organize meet and greet with them and make sure that you report the events or the meetings on social media. And again, you empower them, people can relate to them, and like the community is growing. Sorry. Sometimes you don't have to do it, because it doesn't always work. But sometimes give a chance to their own initiative. So if someone wants to host something around your brand, and you're a control freak because usually you do everything yourself, give it a try. Empower them and highlight the fact that you empower them. It's all about showing to the community that it's not just about you, but now you work as a community, as a group, and even if you're the leader, you depend heavily on them. And they always appreciate it. I think the best hack we did, it's not really a hack because we needed to do it, but let me pretend it's a hack. It was to hire some of our fans. So the first year, most of our interns were early adopters. And it changed everything. Because then they were able to actually help us to better understand the culture. I thought I knew, in fact, I knew nothing. They came with so much nuances that the brand grew even faster. And not only the brand, like the community, the subscribers, like we are making more money because of that. And again, I was able to show to the community that it was not anymore only my personal journey as an entrepreneur. It was the whole community journey. And all together we're going hopefully somewhere interesting. I will end this part of the talk with what is the most important thing for me as I'm trying to support entrepreneurs around their storytelling and their branding is, even if you target a very large market, start with like a very niche audience. You cannot say, oh, I'm targeting the moms. No, you have to define, are you targeting the moms with like one child, two children, the moms will stay at home, or working moms, Catholic moms, Muslim moms. Like you definitely have to narrow down what you're looking for. And best case scenario, you're one of them. So it's, the culture. If you're not from the culture, but you really care about, like the problem you try to solve, study them. Become one of them, even if you don't necessarily need to have like a child or give birth. But I mean, like, you have to care, but deeply care. Not care as a, because you know marketing and you know sales. Deeply care about the culture, and that's how you will make the difference with the competition. Is because you care, and people, you know when people fake, right? Fake the fact that they care. You know when I'm into food, but when you go to a healthy restaurant and you know if like the owner started because it's trendy or because they really care, right? Usually people really care, they talk too much about what they do, but at least you know it's real. So try to become like them, and I guarantee you that you will have the 1,000 supporters that will make the difference. Because again, when you compete with everything to catch the attention of your audience, the only huge difference is the community you build. And nowadays, for investors, if you're able to prove that you build a strong community with a strong engagement, and also you prove that you understand the culture better than your competition, you have more chances to raise the money you need. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask something? Beautiful. Wait, I'm gonna come pass you the mic.
Is it on? Yes, okay. So first, I think it was a really, really good talk. And also I think it was very refreshing to hear that, I mean, we're all surrounded by technology, everything is about tech, that actually it's still about people. I think this was something that's, I think, really, really good to hear. Like one point you mentioned that you had 60,000 like people following you or something before you had the product. I mean, I have two questions. First, how did you do it? And second, what actually did you build? Because I don't think you mentioned it.
So, thank you. Just for the first part, I think in the next 5 years, this question of the people will be more and more important in the tech industry, and especially in the Silicon Valley. Right now, there's a lot of discussion about like the place we have in this industry as users and the effect of those technologies on us and our lifestyle. So I think that for the next generation of entrepreneurs, the fact that you're able to put the community, the people at the center, and the fact that you really care about their well-being will make a huge difference in your own business, but also for the industry. The story about me creating this huge community before launching my product comes from the fact that I was totally broke. And when you want to launch your own video streaming service, so the Netflix of Africa, you need money to acquire the content, to build the platform, to advertise what you do. And for me, it was impossible to go to French investors and say, oh, you know what? I want to create a media showcasing African content, because they don't care. And so I knew that the only thing they care, that's true, I have to be honest, right? I knew that the best way for me to raise any fund would be to show the real demand, right? And so by creating this community online, I started in 2014, so Facebook was still big at that time for my generation, almost 40. We grew super fast. And as I was building the community, but I was making sure that people understood that it's not just a community. At one point, you're going to pay for something, right? So the name of the community was the name of my product, Afrostream. I was using... So it was challenging, because how do you create a community around movies and series without putting illegal content on your group? So I was just using trailers from YouTube. I was uploading it on Facebook and I was saying like, oh, soon on Afrostream. Oh, what do you think about this actress or this movie? And when I was saying soon on Afrostream, I had no relationship with the owners of the content. It was just also a way for me to understand, okay, do they like this content or this idea? And that's something you can apply to any businesses. So when it was time for me to raise the money, I had 60,000 followers on Facebook. I had, I think, 10,000 people subscribe to our newsletter, like waiting list. And so I went to San Francisco and I did Y Combinator. It's a like incubator. And after that, I raised the money. But what is interesting is I was sharing this whole story with my fan base. So, I'm in storytelling, I'm in media, but I had no content to share because I had no money to acquire the content. So I was creating my own story and I was sharing it.
Anybody else?
In the back.
I'll go there and then back.
Hey, thanks again for a great talk. What would you say is a good starting point for an existing product to start storytelling about culture and and maybe it could be a blog post, it could be an authentic interview with the founders. What would you suggest to start with?
What's your product? Let's get personal.
Yeah, so I got here because I did create a streaming platform like you did, and my platform is based on recommendations. I'm serving all those German broadcast stations and searching for those content that you shouldn't miss.
So who's your audience? Is the final user or the broadcaster?
The user who has no who just don't know what they are missing.
But like who's paying you? Like the user or the broadcaster?
No one right now.
Okay. So I asked those questions because you said that you're serving German broadcasters, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I thought that, okay, you're selling your product to them, even if the end user is not them. But then if the people who at one point will pay you are not like the end users, but the broadcasters, you need to have something relevant for them. And then you have to identify, when we talk about like the broadcasters or corporate, you have to identify, okay, who's the one taking the decision? And then you need to have a specific story for this person. And so you have to identify, is this person is reading blogs? Do I have to invite this person to my office and share the story of those 4 people building this incredible technology? If it's the end user, how can you make sure that the broadcasters that will pay for them understand that those people definitely want your product? And so then you build a community around them and you organize events, which means that the way you deliver your storytelling really depends on who you have to convince, right? It could be as simple as inviting your users or paying customers to your office and sharing your story. Because when you do B2B and you can definitely meet the potential buyers, they never went to an office to a startup. They just saw the Facebook movie and then they dream about it, but they don't know anything about anything. So For you, you might think that, oh, it's ridiculous to bring them to my apartment or my small office. For them, it's a dream. You know, they don't live our lives, right? And so it's also a good way to share your storytelling and convince them to work with you. So there's no one simple answer to your question, but I think you can figure out.
Yeah. Thanks.
There was somebody in the back.
Hello. First of all, thank you for your speech. I also believe that the future will be more about people not buying products but marrying the community that they are entering. So since we are in Berlin and everything is about scaling, I would like to ask you your point of view about how we can change storytelling when we need to scale. So since you want to get personal, for example, I work for a brand that does fitness nutrition. So we started for CrossFitter. So the audience was very clear, the need was very clear, and people love to have a brand that actually understand exactly their triggers. But then when you need to scale up, it's very difficult to build the same storytelling for a bigger audience. And when investors come in, you know the difficulty. So I would like to know your recommendation, how we can support this changing community or growing community with storytelling. Thank you.
A very good question. Thank you for that. I don't think that it's hard to scale your niche audience. Like you mentioned the CrossFit audience, and I know that in other places other than Berlin, but also in Europe, there's very people passionate about it. Usually what people try to do, they try to launch new products and target new communities instead of growing, the community they already have, or grow the scale of the product they already have. And when people come with a similar question to me, I always mention what I see on Instagram. On Instagram, I saw, I think it was a year ago, a young guy, I think he's from Lebanon, or if it's not Lebanon, it's maybe Egypt. And so is 18 or something. He has 10 million followers on Instagram, and he's doing makeup. When you think about it, it's very, very niche. And even if it's very, very niche, because he's able to have ambassadors and people who actually deeply relate to him and what he does, people are following. So his audience, he has something very niche. It's more niche than what you do, but his scale is enormous. And so what I usually do, and what I did as I was launching my product in 28 countries, I tried to find local ambassadors or to acquire teams working in companies that were similar to mine. Because when you grow, you want people who get the culture, your culture, but in a different context. So let's say in Berlin, I don't know if the culture is different in Cologne or Hamburg, but you want to make sure that you have someone who gets the nuances. So it's your culture there. And you can grow, you can actually grow. So it sounds too easy when I say it like this, I know, but it works. So you have to expand your team, or even better, you have to add diversity in your team. And usually what people do in the marketing teams, they are all the same. They went to the same school, they grew up most of the time in the same city, and they think they can represent the whole country. And so I'm a great supporter of diversity in teams, gender, origins, ages, and it helps to have the right nuances and scale.
Guys, if you have more questions, you can stay after and ask Tonje more. Thank you so much for the talk.
Thank you. Danke.
Que la famille.